The value we set up like this one. I hesitated yesterday, but I'm like, well, the first time I still didn't believe still like one off that sound right. Where did we start?
So, like I said, bring all of that on the side. And people are sick. They know these too. So they want to listen. That wonderful arrangement. Let's try it. Oh, yes. It's like your solo. Really? I want you to really get out there. Pretend like this is
And I go back.
That's it. Aaron, I want you meaning he doesn't know anything. That's what I would say that. These you would know. Now they got the name. Yeah.
Lashana Tova. Lashana Tova. Beautiful day outside. Thank you, Sherwin, for this weather.
You realize that kind of just completely contradicts everything.
Oh, thanks, Sherwin. All righty, you know the routine out, and you're going to be turning right. And please, a reminder to turn off your cell phones. And no further ado, the Rabbi. Kathy.
Welcome, Lashana Tova. My name's Kathy Radner. I'm on the board. I'm the vice president. And I just want to take a few minutes before our beautiful service begins, just to tell you a little bit about the health of our temple. We are very strong. Please mark your calendars. Friday, November 17th, we will have a grand celebration for our 60th anniversary. No ageism here. We're 60 and very strong. If you check out our calendar, is that better? If you check out our calendar, you will see it is full of activities, events, and classes that nurture us, feed us, and engage this special, special community. At the same time, we are all aware that there are increasing acts of anti-Semitism, and Jews and Jewish institutions like temples are targets. Members have spoken to many people in leadership expressing their concerns, and we have responded. We will be installing a sophisticated, thorough, complicated security system to protect us, so everyone can continue to feel safe and secure at our temple. Of course, that costs money. We have the good fortune of a generous and anonymous donor who has offered a match grant of up to $30,000 for the security system. And any monies given in excess of that will be used to improve our sound system. So that means simply for every dollar that any of us give, our match donor will give another dollar. So there's a terrific opportunity. So please, everyone, consider giving to this very important cause so we can continue to be strong and sustain ourselves. On a different note, I just want to add that as we are up here and I look around, we know that volunteers are at the very heart of CHJ, and there's so many today to thank. So many activities are initiated, events are run by volunteers as well as by our wonderful staff. I want to do a special shout out to one of my favorite causes, which is landscaping. And I especially want to thank the group of gardeners who year in and year out give up their Sunday mornings, come here to weed and clean, and spend several hours to improve our environment, to give back to Temple. So I want to acknowledge Audrey Pleasant, Sarah Markowitz, Saul Foreman, Marina Fatofsky, Michael Ross, Carol Goldrath, Greg Campo, and others who have given back so much. And finally, I want to give a special shout out to an incredible volunteer, David Weeks, who every single week comes to our services to record and ensure the sound quality. So thank you, David.
Well, Shabbat Shalom. It is Shabbat and also L'Shana Tova. Welcome to everybody. I want to reiterate what Kathy said, and also to thank our leadership as well. This was a request for the security that came from you, from the congregation. So please do obviously consider a contribution. It's not something that's in our regular budget. I wish it wasn't in anybody's budget. But as you all know, Jewish institutions have increasingly become targeted, and we want to make sure that we have at least the best kinds of prevention that we can afford. Our readers this morning participating in the service are Bobby Slade, Diana Lieberman, Jerry Lieberman, Charlie and Suzanne Paul, Kathy Radner, Lonnie Fleischer, and Rabbi Miriam Jairus. We begin our service on page 1. What better place to begin? We have come together to welcome the new year, to celebrate its promise, to ponder our responsibilities. New beginnings bring new opportunities for new and deeper relationships, for the larger vision they present. Let us preserve joyous and worthy memories, and let us carry forward our noblest hopes to enrich and uplift in the year which now begins. Let us learn from experience. We talked about this last night, the lessons of the Jewish past and the lessons of the human story, remaining aware of the newer challenges before us. Let us greet the new year with renewed strength and hope, responding to the mystery and the glory of life, setting forth with confidence in our abilities to make the plans and perform the deeds to help make this truly a Shana Tova. May we bless ourselves with a good and sweet year.
Let there be peace to everyone.
Shana Tova. Today is an opportunity for hope and for reflection. Life is a complex weaving of past and future, memory and anticipation. A pause at the calendar's turning helped us reflect on where we have been in the past year and where we hope to be in the year ahead. We gather in this season to feel our connections to each other and to Jews in every corner of the world. Our attachment transcends time and space, uniting us by emotion, memory, and community. We are part of the Jewish people, and we are a congregation of Humanistic Judaism. This is the place. In this place, we are a fellowship of ideas and of family connections. We face the new year together, knowing that we are stronger with each other than we are alone. The bond we feel with each other is profound, for we all face this new beginning together. Let us use this moment to prepare ourselves with courage and conviction for the year that begins today. We are ready for the journey ahead.
Oh ימים חולפים שנה עוברת, הימים חולפים שנה עוברת, הימים חולפים שנה עוברת, אבל תמיד נשארת, אז pass and years go by, tamiד נשארת. Days pass and years go by, ever and ever. As our voices ring out with songs we sing, life is a joyous thing, ring out with songs. Life is a joyous thing, ever and ever.
Life is a joyous thing, ever and ever.
Rosh Hashanah comes with a great gift. It is an opportunity to begin again. No one has sunk so low that change is beyond reach. The old year is gone. You have closed the ledger. We are free to open the book of life that we are writing to a brand new page. No indiscretions. Slowly, we lift the pen to once again record our life. Only we can direct the pen. If we have fallen into the habit of blot and smudges, it is harder to write clear and fine words and phrases, but we are invited to try, and we are challenged to succeed. I have my life to live over. If I know then what I know now. Rosh Hashanah comes with a great gift, that of beginning again. We now what we did not know then. What will we do with that knowledge? How will we use the gift?
There's a place with answers we are seeking. There's a place to find our light of home, with the strength to realize our vision. יש מקום בתוכנו, יש מקום בתוכנו. Look within yourself, you'll find it there. There's a place with wisdom that can guide us. There's a place where we know what's right or wrong. There's a path to peace that we all long for. It's the hope in our It's the hope in our Look within yourself, you'll find it there.
Surely our deeds do not pass away unnoticed, unrecorded. With every word and every deed, we write our book of life. Freely we choose, and what we have chosen to become stands in judgment over what we may yet hope to be. We are free we are responsible. Therefore, it may be said that our lives pass under review. Who shall be shattered by quakes of social change, and who plagued by oppression? Who shall find contentment, and who shall wander in discontent? Who shall be poor in spirit, who rich in tranquility? Who shall be brought low with futility, and who shall be exalted through fulfillment?
חייבים אנחנו, חייבים אנחנו, חייבים אנחנו לתאר ליבנו, כי יש בנו מעשים. We look for the right thing to do. We look for the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to love one another. That is the right thing to do.
What do you hear? Sounds fill the air above us, but we do not listen to them all. We select. We decide which sound we will take to heart, which sounds will move us to respond.
What do we really care to hear?
A baby crying, a sound of beauty, a warning, a word of love, a cry for help. We can shut them out of our lives if we wish, deciding they are only noise.
What will we hear? What will cause us to turn, to renew a part of our life which too quickly passes by?
Have we learned to hear the voices of our elders?
Or the opinions of our youth?
Have we learned to hear the sounds that we ourselves utter?
Or do we mock our own words with gossip and vain promises?
Do we hear the sounds of chaos and creation in our own lives?
And hearing, do we love each other more?
The summons to hear these sounds is the message of the shofar. On Rosh Hashanah, we hear it anew.
Throughout the ages, the shofar sound has had many meanings. Today, it calls out to remind us that time does not stand still and that it is never too late. It calls to remind us that life must be renewed. It is an alarm to awaken us from the slumber and stupor which shut out concern for others and ourselves.
Blessed
Are those who hear the sound of shofar and take it to heart. The sound of the plain ram's horn is not created by mechanical means, but by the breath of life. The sound of the shofar is a wordless chant. It is a cry from us to each other, an act completed only when someone listens.
Hearing is not difficult. True listening demands our attention and our hearts.
Do we hear the shofar sound? Does it call on us to examine our lives?
They have eyes, but see not. Ears have they, but they hear not.
So wrote the psalmist about lifeless idols. Let us live our lives that these words would never be applied to us. The sounds about us, when properly heard, taken to heart, have great power. They lead us to compassion.
Let us turn to these sounds, fearing.
Let us turn to each other, caring.
May our lives reflect that we have heard ourselves and each other.
The sounds of the shofar bind us together, uniting us wholeheartedly. If only all of us would listen, if only all of us would hear.
Listen to the sounds, for not to hear is not to care. We welcome once again Felicia Goldberg, who will sound our shofar as I give the call to Kia. Shivarim. Trua. Tkiya Gdola. A tale told by Rabbi Chaim of Zensin. A person was lost in the forest, wandering for many days and nights, unable to find a way out. My friend, I am lost. I have been trying to find the way for many days and nights, but I cannot. Can you show me the way? The newcomer replied, I too am lost. Yet I can tell you this, do not go the way that I have gone. That way does not lead anywhere. Let us search for the way together. Since it is unlikely that we will be out of the woods this year, let this among all needs be our desire, that in traveling the road to we know not where, we go side by side, hand in hand, heart to heart, alone yet together, lighten our steps and brighten our days. May we all enjoy this year's journey.
and in you. Where is my strength? My strength is in me, and in you, and in you.
The last word has not been spoken. The last sentence has not been written. The final verdict is not in. It is never too late to change my mind, my direction, to say no to the past and yes to the future, to offer remorse, to ask and give forgiveness. It is never too late to start over again, to feel again, to love again, to hope again. It is never too late to overcome despair, to turn sorrow into resolve and pain into purpose. It is never too late to alter my world, not by magic incantations or manipulations of the cards or deciphering the stars, but by opening myself to curative forces buried within, to hidden energies, the powers in my interior self. In sickness and in dying, it is never too late. Living, I teach. Dying, I teach. How I face pain and fear. Others observe me, children, adults, students of life and death, learn from my bearing, my posture, my philosophy.
We rise up each morning, and the earth rises too. World weary, we rise up, and we want something new. A world where compassion falls freely as rain. A world where all people can live without pain. Inclusive of all and rejecting of none. Where love touches all lives like the warmth of the sun. No abuse and no hatred, no prisons of fear, as the sound of the shofar celebrates the new year. If we open our hearts to the love waiting there, we can have the power to heal our despair. If we open our hearts, if we open our eyes, if we open our minds, a world without sorrow, a world without pain, a world where compassion falls freely as rain, a world where all people are united as one. If we open our hearts, if we open our minds, if we open our hearts.
Wow. I love how crowded it is. We seek peace, the most precious gift we can bestow upon ourselves. May we find the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. May our country strive to be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes. May we strengthen the bonds of friendship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of humanity permeate and come every home and every heart. May we labor for righteousness, and in so doing, author a new book of life, blessing and peace. For we alone are the source of peace.
Na'aseh shalom, shalom olam. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'inu shalom. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'inu shalom. Na'aseh shalom, shalom olam. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'inu shalom.
In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. May all who suffer know that they are not alone, that we are there. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, refuah shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits.
us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Shalom. May those in need of healing, Lord, Refuah Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Shalom.
Once again, I invite Felicia to join me at the bima for the second sounding of the shofar. May the sound of the shofar shatter our complacency. May the sound of the shofar remind us of our ability to change. May the sound of the shofar awaken us to our power to effect change in the world. May the sound of the shofar renew our commitment to creating peace in our homes, communities, and the world. Tekiah. Shvarim. Teruah. Tekiah Gedolah. Well done. Thank you.
Shofar, Ashbiu Egret, Ashbiu Egret.
When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of friends can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear. But if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of life and death. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and care for the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wish to live. We remember them now and always. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding presence.
Our thoughts turn to those who are no. We got it. Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own.
May the memory of good people bless our days. Bless our days. Bless our days. Sehet tzadikim livracha, livracha. Sehet tzadikim livracha.
In tribute to them, if you can do so comfortably, I invite you to now rise as we recite our humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. Nitzgadal v'nitzkadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. To life, help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May peace and justice permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. Please be seated. My apologies, my voice is going to be going in and out a little bit, but hopefully won't cause too many problems. A couple of announcements. Tomorrow, for those of you with young families, or if you know someone with a young family, we are kicking off our Spinoza Family Education Program. No more Sunday school here. We do it together, and the children and the adults have an opportunity to learn on their own as well with me and others. It starts at 10 o'clock tomorrow. They don't need to register. They just need to show up, and we'll get it taken care of. Nobody has an excuse who wants one for not having or finding a humanistic Jewish education. So that's tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Spread the word for us. Also on September 29th, I gave you the wrong date last night, as I was reminded by everyone, which is a very good sign that they will be there. And because most people know that Sukkot comes just 5 days after Yom Kippur, we will be celebrating the first night of Sukkot right out here in our beautiful sukkah, sponsored in part by the Social Justice Committee, a potluck. So please bring something very good to eat and join us as we celebrate the holiday and also talk about some of the issues raised by the Sukkot story, particularly homelessness. Of course, I want to thank our incredible musicians, led so wonderfully by my friend, Joseph Palazzolo, who created all new arrangements this year, and joined by our singers for the first time, Bonnie Brooks and Rod Reese, and joining us again. Kate Rosen, thank you for that beautiful rendition of World Full of Sorrow, Without Sorrow. And finally, Henrik Carpathian on violin, Lauren Matthews on cello, and Joseph has a word for you, how you can hear more of at least the non-singing portion of our musicians.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Rabbi.
Wasn't rehearsed at all.
So October the 1st, which is a Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., you will hear this wonderful piano trio, our cellist, our violinist, and pianist, yours truly, playing all kinds of stuff, including klezmer. And Rabbi said we could do a soundbite if it was no less than 7 seconds. So here's a little soundbite from the Mendelssohn Trio in D minor. So if you want to hear more, October 1st at 2 p.m. It's a Sunday in the sanctuary.
Tickets only available at the door. And we have some special music before I begin my words this morning. What will we be hearing, Joseph?
Make them hear you from the musical Ragtime.
Go out and tell our story, let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you, make them hear you.
How justice was our battle and how justice was denied. Make them hear you, make them hear you.
And say to those who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you, make them hear you. Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you, make them hear you.
And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones.
Make them hear you, make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice and then my brothers stand. Will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men? Make them hear you, let me hear you, let me hear you.
Thank you. What a great introduction. One of my favorite shows. And if you've never seen it or read the book, you absolutely should. Ragtime. It really speaks to the story we're going to tell this morning. But I want to start with this. If you've ever taken a look at our website, you may have noticed that there is a section called Frequently Asked Questions. And one of the most popular and most frequently asked of these questions goes like this. So, if you don't believe in God, how can there be ethics? I think what people are wondering here is, if without God we can possibly tell the difference between right and wrong, how do we know what's moral? How do we know how to treat other people? The website offers this pithy reply. The foundation of ethics is not dictated by God. The foundation of ethics is human dignity. Now, I realize that this answer, of course, begs the question, what do we mean by human dignity? And if indeed human dignity is the foundation of our ethics, and when it's on a website, it must be true, well, maybe it's something that we should spend more time thinking about. And that's why I offer us today an exploration of the ethics of human dignity. On the most fundamental level, it's important that we understand that when we're talking about human dignity, we are voicing an aspiration, one that asserts the intrinsic value and worth of each and every person. Why an aspiration? Well, for the obvious and I hope manifest reason that we simply do not live in a world that truly and actually operates under any ethic of human dignity. Do many of us seek to live in such a world? Yes. Though some are more honest and expansive about that aspiration than others. Are there those who reject it as a basis for morality or ethics? Absolutely. Many rely on religious or cultural traditions and teachings alone, many of which are far from universalistic. But prevaricators and outliers notwithstanding, the world has clearly been tipping in the direction of at least honoring the ideal of human dignity on a universal basis for quite some time. This morning, we're going to think about how and when we elevated this aspiration to such a central place in the world's stated cultural value system. And we'll talk about why we humanists believe that it really is the foundation of all morality, of ethics. We'll do this even though by acknowledging that it's still an aspiration, we're admitting that we're not there yet. So let's begin with a few perhaps obvious definitions. What is it that we mean when we invoke lofty language that speaks about every person's intrinsic value and worth? Well, to say that a person's value is, a human being's value is intrinsic, is to say that it's inherent. It's built in. It's conferred on us by the mere fact that we are humans. It's not conditioned by external factors, not by social status, not by wealth, not by ethnicity, not by any set of beliefs that we hold, not even by our individual talents or abilities. It's just due us, because if any person deserves it, all people deserve it. And if you're thinking that this view is more utopian than realistic, then you know why it's still an aspiration. In any case, realized or not, human dignity encompasses a standard of universal equality, equality for all people, before the law, as members of society, without prejudgment, without discrimination. And it incorporates another important idea, that each human person is autonomous, able to make decisions about our lives, our own beliefs, our own values, our own lifestyles, within the reasonable limits that these do not upend society by threatening or hurting those who may believe or behave differently. And of course, under certain circumstances, that may be the real core of our challenge, because two sets of beliefs and values and lifestyles frequently bump up against one another, causing some to seek to limit autonomy for others. The battle for reproductive rights comes to mind, and many other such issues. Finally, an ethic of universal human dignity offers the idea that every individual deserves protection from humiliation, from degradation, from dehumanization, for being demeaned for who they are. I've already noted that these aspirations, these longings of ours to live in a world where human dignity is honored in these ways, are by no means universally shared by others. I've mentioned the possibility of cultural or religious traditions that explicitly reject them. But there is also the opposition that comes from within, that stems from human nature alone. This ethic is not built into us. Even many people who deem it to be a beautiful notion, who really do aspire to it, need to actually work on it. After all, if treating one another in such deeply respectful and kind ways have been built into the human species, if it was as natural to us as eating or sleeping, no matter who we were facing, it wouldn't still be an aspiration. Have we made progress? Well, we have indeed. Considering that there was a time during civilizational history when the concept of universal human dignity was completely unimaginable, where for thousands of years and until pretty recently, human beings were classified and categorized according to any number of social or cultural or economic divisions, and that this was considered perfectly acceptable by everyone and no one questioned it. Considering all of that, we can certainly say that we made enormous progress. Today, it is very much questioned. But still, it's not near enough. Because we as humanists believe in human progress, this morning, I want to approach our exploration of human dignity from a progressive standpoint, one that primarily celebrates our great victories in ways that I hope can inspire us to continue to do the work of those that came before us. In order to do so, I want to take us back in time to the roots of these aspirations. And you'll note that there's some similarity to a few of the things I discussed last night. Believe it or not, one of these important starting points for our aspirations was religion. Now, like any human endeavor, and religions are, let me be clear, entirely a human endeavor, we know that religious teachings can be quite narrow-minded, and I addressed that last night, and it's always going to be true. A lot of us came to humanism and humanistic Judaism because we were convinced not only of the folly of supernaturalism, but because so many of today's religious philosophies still continue to promote the very opposite of a universal ethic of human dignity. I'm sure that in the time it took me to utter those 3 sentences, some of you have probably come up with and can easily cite at least a handful of major religions or religious approaches that regularly resist our secular humanistic ideas about human dignity. It doesn't take a scholar of world history to note the role that religion has played and continues to play in oppression of women, of racial and ethnic minorities, of LGBTQ people, of those who follow other religions, and so many other kinds of people. It's all true. This is one major result of the authoritarianism that has ossified many religions with kind of regressive traditionalism, those that we frequently call fundamentalists, who always seem to be living in the past, afraid of the present, horrified about the future. However, such reactionaries notwithstanding, many of the world's better ideas about human dignity were actually developed originally by religious thinkers. Take some of these ideas from our own heritage, for example. While it's true that ancient Israelite religion and culture were hierarchical and patriarchal autocracies in every sense of the word, they evolved. Circumstances conspired to direct Jewish leaders of other generations away from some of the earlier prejudices. Around 2,000 years ago, when the Jerusalem temple fell and Jews who had already started becoming more cosmopolitan and internationalized now found themselves without kings or priests serving any significant or even symbolic role in societies, there was a void that was left behind, and it was filled by a more popular class of leaders known as the rabbis. Not my kind of rabbi, ancient rabbis. Now, they were not exactly egalitarian, nothing close to that, in our modern way of thinking, but they were considerably more evolved when it came to many ideas about human nature. And they did begin to hint at small openings for a more universalistic ethic. By way of example, let me offer you this rabbinical teaching from sometime around 1800 years ago. I'm pretty sure you've heard it many times. Whoever destroys a single life is considered to have destroyed the whole world, and whoever saves a single life is considered to have saved the entire world. Now, to be completely honest, there was a more ethnocentric version of this that was also in circulation. It spoke about destroying a single Jewish life and only saving a certain Jewish life. Then as now, of course, there were different attitudes among Jews about just how universalist this commitment to human dignity should be. And of course, there was also anti-Semitism, a problem for Jews 2,000 years ago, no less than today, that helped to engender some of those prejudices. But let's keep our focus on the first vision, the one that probably, if you heard it in Schindler's List. It's just as old as the more ethnocentric version. And it seems to have become the preferred version of many later rabbis and teachers. Now think about what this passage teaches us, that every human being is actually like an entire world, an entire universe unto themselves. These rabbis found in this a teaching that suggested that each person, through their unique voice, their unique appearance, and their unique thoughts, deserves unique respect and dignity. What gave them this idea? Rabbis always liked to ground their theologies in some kind of text. Well, they took inspiration from an old story with which we're all familiar. The creation of humanity is described in the Torah's book of Genesis. Unsurprisingly, of course, the ancient rabbis really did believe in divine creation, that there was one man, Adam, who was created first before all other humans. We, by the way, in Humanistic Judaism, honor that idea. The artwork on the back wall of our sanctuary says Adam. That's the name, Adam, the first humanity. From this divine parentage, as of course they imagined it, they derived a lesson about universal human dignity. They noted how the story teaches that this very first Adam, this very first person, was formed in the image and likeness of his creator. Now, progressive religious advocates, my colleagues, rabbis and ministers from the more progressive side of the aisle, who are allies in our aspirations, to this day consider this biblical verse so important that they continue to regularly cite it. I've never, ever attended a single human rights event that included any religious groups, usually several, where the rabbis and the ministers don't talk about this story. I'm usually the only one who doesn't. And even secular Jews have come on board with this idea. One of the great civil rights, human rights organizations in Israel is simply called B'Tselem, in the image. And from this they don't mean, because they are and tend to be secular people, but they also know that this is a strong and powerful piece of literature from the past. The ancient rabbis expanded on the significance of divine creation as they understood it, this creation in the divine image and likeness, calling it the basis for universal equality. In one passage, they teach that Adam, the first human, was created alone, the only one, due to the importance of maintaining peace amongst all people. Thus, no person, they said, will be able to say to another, "My father was greater than yours," for we all share one lineage. Furthermore, these rabbis taught that Adam was created alone to remind us that because we all come from the same ancestor, all people can say, the world was created just for me. And if you can say that, it means that you deserve the same respect and dignity of every other human. Other religions, of course, promulgated similar lessons. I have a whole list of them here, but I'll probably save you the time. You know that it's in the New Testament, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. I like this one from the Quran, Muhammad saying that no one has superiority over another, only good deeds determine that. Buddhism's teachings about loving kindness and compassion, Confucianism's emphasis on respect for the rights and dignity of all, what they call li. We know that it's in many, many indigenous cultures. One of my favorites was the discovery of something from African Ubuntu philosophy, emphasizing this by saying, I am because we are. To come around full circle back to our Jews, our fellow Jews, the religious ones, that is, I recently read a wonderful piece in the Jewish Forward by a man named Jonathan Leaner entitled, Why I, as an Orthodox Rabbi, am committed to LGBTQ plus rights, emphasizing that his primary responsibility is to protect the dignity of every human being. Stunning. That we humanists, Jewish and otherwise, share the same aspirations as these progressive religious folks do. It's important. The world continues to be a somewhat religious place, and without them by our side, it's difficult to perhaps fulfill or even imagine fulfilling our aspirations. But, when humanists praise religion, there's always a but. Religions are, by definition, well, they tend to, at least, range towards the narrow and the exclusive. There's a lot of self-contradicting going on in religions. And they, of course, contain and always will the propensity toward absolutism because of the notion of obedience and what is owed to a supernatural authority. The progressives among them must be, or may be, our most significant allies in realizing our goals. But as we learn from this story and others like them, their motivations are different from our own. Moreover, in an increasingly secularized world, we humanists believe that it's important, actually crucial, that we mount a secular argument with humanistic justifications and means that provide support and a firm basis for actually achieving the reality we seek. We don't reject them, but they cannot go very far in informing what we need to do and why. Fortunately, this does exist. Humanistic aspirations to build a world founded upon universal human dignity have been going on for a long time, at least, and perhaps since before the period of the 18th century Enlightenment. That great era, also known as the Age of Reason, was an intellectual and cultural movement that emerged in Europe. I'm sure many of you remember this from your world history classes, which, among other groundbreaking ideas, sought to replace the authority of deities and their earthly deputies, the priests and the kings, with human rationalism. They stressed the role of philosophy and science as the only legitimate ways to interpret reality. They dissected traditional social structures and beliefs and advocated for political upheavals and social reforms. And they fashioned precursors to our modern humanism that focused upon human power, potential, and dignity. For perhaps the first time in human history, they began to formulate new and more unifying visions and vehicles to actualize their ideas about human dignity. And the language began to change. What was it that it would take to realize the aspirations for universal human dignity? Universal human rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every American knows these words, probably by heart, penned by Thomas Jefferson, preamble to the justification for separation from Great Britain. An enormous leap forward, they declared for the very first time in human history the establishment of a nation based upon universal rights. It really is an amazing document, both for what it says and for what it hides. Now, it may sound religious, but its concession to a creator is more lip service than prayer. The bigger challenge of the Declaration of Independence is that we know a lot about its creators and signers. They were products of their time and historical context, and their talk of unalienable rights marred severely by their enslavement of Black people, their exclusion of women, and the colonialist crimes they committed against the indigenous people upon whose land they built this nation. Well, they, of course, temper our enthusiasm at times for that statement. And yet, in its still very quotable essence, it spread an idea of equality and inalienable rights throughout the world. And even those who were excluded demanded the gifts they promised. Famously, it was France that came next. Despite the fact that the French Revolution turned out to be a disappointment in so many ways, its influence was widely experienced nevertheless, due in large part to the publication in 1789 of a document called the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. This manifesto detailed its author's demands for more universal, equal rights. They sought to achieve these through the overthrow of their society's traditional hierarchical power structures. While never adopted, at least not in the form that it was written, it became an early template, an early inspiration for many secular societies that would come along and were committed to many of the same ideas. Its influence on the United States Bill of Rights is clear. It demanded equality before the law, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Rabbi Wein so deeply admired the goals of the French Revolution and this declaration that he once wrote an essay that he called Our French Heritage. In it, he lauded the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, reminding us also of the Jewish debt to the Enlightenment. It granted citizenship, ultimately, to the Jews who had previously had no official status whatsoever, just guests in most places. And he noted how it brought freedom to Jewish life, freedom not only to taste the opportunities of the outside world, but also to begin to defy the tyranny and tradition of the inner world of our own Jewish communities, our own Jewish life. Freedom that brought so much positive energy into the Jewish world. It was responsible for, among other things, the creation of Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism, and yes, Humanistic Judaism. As Rabbi Wein wrote elsewhere, our humanism and our Jewish identity are intimately connected. Universal human rights, of course, are no less an aspiration than the parent idea of universal human dignity. So it should not surprise us that the political goals of the Enlightenment remained aspirational for too long. In France, as I said, the revolution did not succeed. There was simply too much resistance from traditionalists and too much divisiveness among the revolutionaries. In the United States, the fullest achievement of human rights was preempted too by tradition, by other hindrances, not least of these, the genocide of indigenous Americans and the continued and hideous enslavement and subsequent mistreatment of Black Americans and the ongoing mistreatment and oppression of women and so forth. Ironically, it took World War II, when our enemies were Nazism and other fascist groups that absolutely made no pretense, had no desire whatsoever for any kind of idea of universal human equality. Well, it took that war to force many to confront our own ongoing failures. Having won it, those who fought it under the banner of creating a free world now constructed an ethic of universal human rights. They found themselves, however, looking in the mirror at their own multiple failures to fulfill their goals. Here in the United States, Black Americans and many others, returning home from a war that they too had fought for freedom, held up a mirror to our society, demanding full inclusion. They hold it high before America to this day. Throughout the world, other peoples and nations, having fought side by side with those who preached freedom, demanded to break the fetters of colonialism. Slowly but surely, some progress began to be made. And in a remarkable demonstration of our yearning for a better world than the one that had existed before that war, the allies who fought Nazism and fascism formed a United Nations and set about composing what they hoped, and it is still an unfulfilled hope, would be a final and convincing elaboration of universal human equality, dignity, and rights. They called it the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It remains a towering articulation of as close to an all-embracing standard of equality and dignity for all peoples and all nations that could have been achieved at the time. It's been translated into over 500 languages. It's been backed by, of course, the aspiration that underlies it to finally end war, to put an end, of course, to the mistreatment of groups and individuals everywhere. But what makes it so unique is not just those aspirations and yearnings and longings, it's that it was the first time in human history that leaders and thinkers from Western and Eastern and Northern and Southern cultures all around the globe came together under the inspiration of preparing, writing, and promulgating a recognition of the inherent dignity, their words, and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. The reality was, they said, the foundation of freedom, justice, and what they hoped would be peace in the world. They recounted in their document the many ways in which disregard and contempt for human rights had resulted in barbarous acts which outraged the conscience of humanity, not least of all the recent war they had fought. And they promised each other the advent of a world in which human beings could enjoy freedom of speech and belief, freedom from fear and want, noting these as the highest aspirations of common people everywhere, attainable only through a common standard of achievement for every person, born, every one of us, free and equal in dignity and rights, their language, endowed, they said, with reason and conscience. If you've never read it, I urge you to do so. It's right there on the internet. You'll find in it emphases on reason, as we've said, ethics, social justice, philosophical naturalism. That's us. They articulate so many of our humanistic values, and in surprising ways, too. Unlike its ancestors, the Declaration of American Independence, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights contains absolutely no religious references whatsoever, none. No text, beliefs, or authorities are cited in its universal platform. And yet it somehow manages to do this without in any way insulting or denigrating anybody's religion, making every attempt to transcend, and it's not so easy, cultural and religious differences. Nevertheless, it demands equality and non-discrimination on the basis of race, sex, language, religion, other statuses, emphasizing the rights to freedom of thought and consciences and religion, as I've said, including the freedom to reject religion, to change one's religion, and our right to hold or reject anything religious. Now, if we were to consider the world's progress in the areas of universal human rights and dignity on the basis of documents alone, we would judge it an enormous success. It would no longer be an aspiration, of course. And before we become too critical of everything it has failed to achieve, I do want to acknowledge that there really does exist today a broader consensus than ever before about many of the fundamental human rights that it called for. It really was and continues to be an unprecedented document and an unprecedented inspiration. It contains a consensus about certain political, religious, and cultural realities that we take for granted today. As I said at the beginning, the culture of the world changed, at least what the world hoped for. There do exist today thousands of national and international government and non-governmental institutions and organizations, so many important groups and individuals working to advance fundamental rights, to intervene where they are absent, to heal, to bring hope. Humanity has done important work and made significant progress. But, it wouldn't be a sermon if it didn't go in this direction. We're still pretty far away. We're still facing old challenges in some places and new ones in the others. In some cases, we have tolerated, including in this country, too much from those who would impose authoritarian, autocratic rule. We have failed to challenge them as we should. We have stood by too silently, even when they borrow, many of them, and misappropriate the language of our progressivism. One of the examples of this that irks me the most is when they employ claims that their repression of their own people should be respected in the name of tolerance. Here we speak of tolerance, and we see it thrown back in our faces. We too often fail to raise our voices when they direct violence and oppression and repression toward women, religious and ethnic minorities, dissenters, LGBTQ people, and nonconformists of every type, afraid as we are of being called out as being intolerant of their so-called cultural integrity. Well, I, for one, find little of value in arguments that we owe tolerance to the intolerant. I believe that our humanism requires us to vigorously oppose oppression, even when we are accused of lacking tolerance for the oppressor's cultural integrity. I am shocked when we are asked to tolerate granting a seat to the Islamic Republic of Iran on the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, of all things, or to tolerate the treatment of LGBTQ people in so many Christian African nations. It's their culture, after all. Or to tolerate repression of groups like the Uyghurs by the People's Republic of China, or of the Palestinians in Israel and the occupied territories, and I could go on and on and on. Cultural and other diversity should be respected, but they can never be used to excuse or justify violations of fundamental human rights and dignity. There is no room for humanists to carve out exceptions to our principles, if they are, as I said at the beginning, truly the foundation of our ethics and our morality. There remains so much work to do. Some of it in the name of advancement, some of it in the cause of preventing retreat, all of it difficult and challenging and at times most exhausting. But if we are true to our values, if we really believe that the rock-hard foundation of what it means to be a moral and ethical human being is human dignity, then we humanists and humanistic Jews must never give up. We speak in Judaism of mitzvot. Sometimes we mean it, a mitzvah, as a good deed, but it really means a commandment, generally a commandment from God. But for us, a mitzvah can also be a commandment that we give to ourselves. If we hope to see our aspirations, these promises that we continue to honor, our yearnings and longings come to fruition, we must obey this mitzvah so that we can deliver it to the generations to come. Thank you. All right, let's, as we invite our musicians back into the room, turn to page 20. Right, that's the song, but I got a little reading here. It's my welcome the musicians back into the room reading. I think I specifically put it in there so they wouldn't feel they had to run. So now at the close of this day's contemplation, let us together declare, let the year upon which we entered be for us, our family, our community, and for all the world, a year of blessing and prosperity, a year of security and comfort, a year of health and contentment, a year of joy and celebration, a year of virtue and justice, a year that finds the hearts of parents united with the hearts of their children, a year of pardon and forgiveness, a year of peace, a year of life. And we're going to conclude with, as we go on our way. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova U'Mitzuka, sweet and happy New Year.
Thank you. I'll see you at the opera. I have fifth row center seats at the Opera House. Season tickets. I sang with the company years ago. I sang in the chorus many years ago. So Suzanne and I are very close friends, good friends actually. Yeah, she would bring me like every year to sing with the opera company. I'm too busy to do it now. Yeah, but she's a wonderful person, isn't she? She's outstanding. I love her. Yeah, everyone loves her.
Come on, say hi.
Yeah. Tell her that Rodriguez said hello, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.